Coach David Thorpe of TrueHoop on the line, and David is there. Coach, how you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm okay. Personally, I'm okay. Obviously, the Raptors have not been so flattering these last couple of games. They're on a 4-game losing streak. They lost 6 of 7. And I think one of the things that's been really concerning is just that, the starting lineup has been trending downward almost collectively, it feels like. So, Coach, I wanted to start with you there because there was already a discussion today with Coach Darko at practice about the idea of will you change the starting lineup? And his answer was he kind of wants to give it another game or two. Now, I don't know what he's going to see another game or two, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on the Raptors starting group.
I mean, to defend Darko is to suggest that most coaches are loath for change. He's no different than most other guys. So I understand that part. The answer isn't so smart. A game or two when you're 20 games in. That makes no sense at all. But yeah, they don't like to change things much. Having watched that team play some, and including, I think I watched the whole game last night. I definitely think there should be a change. And if they were winning games, I still think they should be a change. I think there's a better formula than what they're using. But in light of what's happening there, it makes no sense to me. But listen, the elephant in the room, Will, and you may know this, is your head coach is in love with your point guard. So if you think Dennis Schröder is your answer, but then keep starting him and make some other changes. But the rest of the free world doesn't think he's the answer. He has never been the answer. He is a nice off-the-bench guy, in my opinion. He's a very good, very talented player that I don't think 29 other teams would want starting and running their show. And I'm not blaming him, by the way. He ain't the only problem on the team. But that it begins and ends with the fact that you have a very, very close relationship between an enigmatic, challenging guard that's always driven teams crazy, and a head coach in his first year who trusts one guy, and that's him. That's how I see it anyway.
Yeah, I was going to ask you this later on, but maybe we'll just get to it now. If you're a new coach coming into an existing team like Darko is, if you also are a new head coach in the sense that you haven't coached in the NBA as a head coach, you've been obviously a long-time assistant.
Right.
Because I know you also advise coaches around the league, like, what would you have advised him to do coming into this scenario? Because it's obviously quite challenging, especially when you also consider the fact that a lot of the change this season was supposed to come just on the coaching front.
Well, I know I would have started by saying in your media day press conference, don't attack the best player on your team. That is never a good starting place.
Yeah. Okay.
And I don't remember anymore exactly what he said, but I remember, I'm not sure I ever really knew exactly what he said, but I know how people reacted in my world of they're calling Pascal Siakam selfish. I don't know what Darko said, actually. I'm sure I once did. I just don't remember. It was back in October, late September. That doesn't make any sense. I don't think anyone thinks he's struggling to shoot the ball, but no one ever thinks Pascal is selfish or has played selfishly. So I thought that was a very odd place to begin. And quite frankly, I think I often say how you start is how you finish. Well, you started off on the wrong foot, buddy, and it hasn't gotten any better. Siakam has found a way to really make an impact, and depending on the metrics you use, has become kind of the player that you expected him to be, despite the offense changing and everything else. I don't think the rest of the team can say that, although Scottie certainly had a great start and has been scintillating sometimes since he's not been as good overall, which is to be expected. Teams are going to adjust what they're doing based on their film and everything. But I definitely would say to him, you can't rely on Dennis Schröder as if he's Chris Paul or Fred VanVleet. He just isn't that guy. And he's more talented than Fred, to be honest with you. I was really taken with him when he was at OKC. And I remember writing once for TrueHoop, actually, so it wasn't that long ago, when they were in the bubble, that he was going to be the difference. And I don't remember if they were playing Houston or who they were playing. It was a 7-game series. OKC lost in game 7. And I thought Dennis was going to be the reason why they won the series because I didn't think anyone could guard him. And he kind of figured out over the course of the 7 games that, you know what, no one really can guard me. But he's not a decision maker. He's not a reliable character to run a team. There's a lot of guys that I feel like are better off just ask them to score. I say this about Zach LaVine, who's a very talented player and someone I'm fond of as an analyst and a fan of how much he loves the game. But I just don't think he can be your quarterback and get consistency. Not a surprise if the Bulls are playing their best basketball with him being out, even though he is one of their better players. I think trusting Dennis to be the face of your offense. That's not to say he's their best player or their franchise player, but he's kind of the guy that runs the team, and I think that's silly. No one in the league thinks that about him, and yet Toronto is where he is because they made the decision to let him be that guy.
Yeah, I think you are seeing at the start of the year, Dennis was actually more involved. Like even touches per game, things like that. He was like top 10 in the league pretty consistently in how much he got the ball per game. It's come back down now where he's sort of closer to 20th, even trending towards the 30th range in the league. But that's because his minutes have also come down, in addition to other adjustments being made. I think what's interesting to watch right now is that a lot of other teams are just going under so often. And I think he started the season well. He continued the hot shooting from the World Cup. But now that you're seeing a lot of teams go under on Dennis and him not really being able to punish that kind of coverage, you're seeing the whole starting group really crater offensively. And I guess I'm curious to hear your perspective because you cover the whole league. How many other teams in the NBA have this similar problem where their starting point guard is somebody that teams go under on a consistent basis?
Well, I'm going to push back on this one thing.
Okay.
Not many, by the way, not many, but I'm going to push back on the idea that that is the bigger problem. To me, the problem is your quarterback is your lead decision maker when the ball's in his hands a ton. And so what most players do is they recognize I'm going to get the ball, and it could be me that's doing it, to a player in best position to either score or draw enough because of gravity, draw enough help to make easy plays out over and over and over again, relentlessly so. You'll if you look back in the history, and I know you know the game, from Chris Paul to LeBron James, both of them have, I think, often been too unselfish that way in that they're trying to get other guys involved, and yet their teams weren't good enough to be able to go through stretches where they just weren't scoring very much because they were getting the ball to other people, and now they've got to make these heroic comebacks. And LeBron was even guilty of that in the playoffs when they won a couple years ago. He finally stopped doing it. In fact, I wrote an article, and I bet he saw it because we have a lot of mutual friends, and I'm sure I wasn't the only one saying, LeBron, you can't wait till halftime to decide to impose your will full time. And so Dennis, to me, Scottie will be rolling, or Siakam will be rolling, or even sometimes OG is rolling. And Dennis, after 3 or 4 possessions, and those guys are still being guarded by the same people, will make sure someone else gets the ball because everyone else has to eat. No, this is a monarchy. It's not a democracy. You got to feed the king, feed the king, feed the king. And when the king is gorged because there's so much help coming, everyone's far more open. Then you just making sure everyone feels like they got to touch the ball. If indeed he's thinking that. I've been told by people that he's not even thinking that far. He's just not thinking at all. I don't know the answer to either one of those things. I just know I'll go through stretches watching the Raptors play where, compared to some of the other teams I follow all the time, which are most of the good teams in the league, if not all of them, they don't go very long without making their best offensive player having the ball at a good part on the floor or in a place where you can get to a good spot on the floor and then things open up. And just watching, I mean, Scottie and Pascal both are not easy to guard one-on-one depending on where they are on the court. They're much easier in some areas than others. And both are super willing passers, 167, 169. Plus, they get people open all the time. It may look a little weird and clunky, but the bottom line is the ball is being moved to an open guy, and then you play. Seth Greenberg, the ESPN announcer, used to be a coach. He used to say, you create the first double team, and then the game really starts.
Yeah.
You know, Steve Kerr says you got to get the first domino to fall. Same idea. Siakam and Barnes are the best at that, and you go through stretches in games where they just don't literally touch the ball. It was worse early in the season with Siakam's getting it very little, and you can look at the numbers for that early November or whatever. And then that was December. That was Schroeder's time. That's changed for the betterment of the team. But I just don't think Dennis thinks that way. And again, Lou Williams is a great player. He was not someone you would ask to quarterback your team. Jamal Crawford, great player. Not someone you would ask to quarterback your team. The Raptors have a quarterback that I don't think thinks the game that way and are running an offense where the point guard is super important, that primary ball handler, to make sure the ball is delivered to where it needs to go. And I think that's where it starts offensively with their flaws.
Okay, that's interesting. I didn't think about it in those terms, but I do agree with you because, you looked at, for example, the Knicks that they played against yesterday. Knicks
How
have a
much?
very good clarity in terms of what they want to do on offense.
Very much so.
They're going to give it to Randall, or they're going to run a pick and roll with Brunson. They'll see what the defense does. Do they switch? Do they give up a mismatch? And then they'll just attack. And then everyone else is just waiting and cutting and figuring out a way to get themselves open or crashing the glass. It's very, very clear. It's not the most complicated. It's almost so simple. But you compare that to the Raptors, where it's like Raptors will run more intricate things than the Knicks. They ran more intricate things than the Knicks yesterday. But A, because of a lack of shooting, but also B, because when you're sharing the ball like that, you're also saying that your best player or whoever creates the best advantages don't
And the
get the
less.
ball as much.
Yeah.
So it's just a function of the the other thing with the starting group, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts, is on Jakob
Yeah.
Poeltl. Feels like he's in the way a lot of the time. Now I get the non-shooting component. I even get the fact that he doesn't really jump and he doesn't really have the ability to finish through contact. There should have been multiple and ones he finished yesterday. But how do you see his fit with the starting group? Because we see often Darko takes him out late in games, including yesterday.
I'm a big fan of Jakob Poeltl and spent the morning on a trade machine. He can't be traded to January 15, but for Troop, I'm writing an article about all. I think that I don't do this a lot, but
Mhm.
my Henry Abbott, the founder, wanted me to write about who could make a deal now to get themselves in position to win in May and June, because it's kind of musical chairs. Someone's gonna be left out of the arms race of adding assets to your
Yeah.
team. And Toronto is a team with Pascal and OG and Gary and Jakob. Everyone but Scottie, really. I don't think Dennis is going to have much of a trade value. They can get a lot of teams really, really rich. And it's not easy because you need to have, in order for Jakob to be the five that I think he can be at his best, you need to have a really sweet shooting four. And that's not what Siakam is right now. Siakam, as some people have written, he's the best post player in the league. He's amongst the best post players because, especially because he doesn't have to be in the post to score down there.
Mm.
He's got that versatility to start on the perimeter. And so I always say he can take your big guy out from the perimeter and attack him, and he can bully ball your big wings and your guards. Not a lot of guys can do that. Those that can are all stars. But if you watch the Raptors play frequently, the moment Siakam has the ball, and this is the case for Scottie, if he gets it inside 18, 16 feet, there is Pirtle's man sitting under the rim.
Mhm.
He'll pop out for a moment and he comes right back in all the time. And so I think that's a bad combination. So that's, and I'm a Pirtle fan. The team played much better last year when they got him. I think, as you know, they played like a playoff team
Yeah.
once they had him. But this iteration with Dennis at one instead of Fred, with the way Gary's playing currently, I don't think anything's permanent. Things can go up and down,
Mhm.
or they can continue to trend up. They continue to trend down. All these options. This iteration is bad. That spacing is only made worse with a four that can't shoot, a five that doesn't try to shoot, and a one that is not a great shooter. And I would say, in Siakam's case, at least you can let him play in the corner some, where he's starting to shoot a little bit better. He's not shooting much elsewhere. You can't do that with Portal at all. He's just not a threat. He's not
Yeah.
going to shoot the
Yeah.
ball. So you gotta find a really, really sweet shooting four if you best want to take advantage of Jakob at the five.
OKC would be kind of nice for him if you could play him alongside of Chet, because I don't think Chet should be the full-time five all the time. Matchup wise, I
You
think he can
think
do it.
Pirtle? You think Pirtle next to Chet?
Yeah, in OKC. I like that kind of fit and that kind of idea.
Yeah, I like Siakam there better.
Okay. I'm sure they will. I'm
Instead of
sure they
playing
do
with
too.
that Chet.
Sure they do,
Yeah,
coach. That
yeah,
that will be it's already such a difficult team to stop. You add in a
yeah.
consistent post scorer. I mean, yeah, wow. Well, we'll see. We'll see if there's a potential move to be made there. In the meantime, obviously Scottie and Pascal are also on the team. I think
Yeah.
honestly, you look at both of them, they made improvements over last season in certain areas. For Scottie, I think it's in more areas. I think he's more engaged consistently. He's shooting the ball much better. He's so active in wanting to shoot the ball now too. Any opponent going under on him, he will just say, forget what the offense is saying. If you go under on me, I'm just gonna like take the three, and it's exactly the right basketball play. He's looking for it more aggressively. Yesterday, he had 8 threes attempted. He made 3. Like, they didn't have any games like that from him last year outside of like 1 or 2 rarities. That's on a consistent more basis. And I think for Pascal too, is like obviously the 3-point shooting isn't really there, but you go back the last 16 games, Pascal's shooting 62% on 2-point shots, and these are mostly self-generated looks. So what are you seeing that's improving from both of those guys offensively this season?
Well, I'll reinforce what you said, but first I will say this: if you asked me before about Darko, to me, everything should begin with how do I get those guys the ball more and better spots together.
Yeah.
They can be an incredibly dynamic and unique duo, right? Tatum and Brown have their own thing going on. They're incredible. Kawhi and PG, incredible. Siakam and Barnes are as a twosome are better passers than those other duos.
Okay.
Those other duos are good passers.
Yeah.
Barnes and Siakam are really gifted passers and willing, very willing passers. So I'd like to see a lot more of both of them getting in the middle of the court and then playing high low with each other. They don't do that very much, again, because of Pirtle's presence. That's really a problem. So get Pirtle out pretty quickly,
Yeah.
and you can play a little differently. I think the biggest thing with Scottie is what we saw a little bit as a rookie. He's just better at it now. It's just pure assertiveness and aggressiveness. Scottie is a very competitive guy. Remember, I loved him coming out of college the one year I watched him, and really got to know his game well just from afar. It was COVID, so I didn't go to a single game that year. My son was just a freshman. He's asserting himself like never before. He more than then when he was a rookie, and he's better at it. He's just much better at it. And Darko has the ball in his hands more. The team has the ball in his hands more, so that's a good thing. Very happy with him defensively also.
Oh, yeah.
I think Scottie has really challenged himself defensively. The metrics are weird. Some metrics have Scottie being incredible. Some have him being pretty bad. We actually on my show, we're going to have a couple of data analysts come on, pretty well-known guys, to explain what the hell's going on.
Okay.
How is cleaning the glass have Scottie rated so low and Taylor Snow, Dustin Threes have him rated so highly? I don't understand why. He's the same player, the same data.
Yeah.
But I think he projects exactly what I thought when he came out. He's going to be a multiple-time All-Star, many, many times over. And if he continues to shoot like this, and that's an important thing because not everyone finishes as well as they start even over the course of 8 weeks or so. It happens where you kind of lose it and you don't get it back. But let's assume that he keeps it up. I think he's got all NBA in his future. It won't be this year, I don't think. The team isn't good enough anyway. In Siakam's case, listen, when you start day one, and you and I've talked about this off air, on day one, your coach is calling you selfish and your team doesn't give you an extension despite the kind of season. Last year the team was terrible, and Pascal the same year as he did the year before, metrically speaking, when he was all NBA. And so he started off badly, and that wasn't a good start. And yet he's, like you said, he's found a way to continue to impact games, score 20 plus a night on most nights. I think he's playing the best defense since he's played in maybe 6 seasons, and can get better, in my opinion. And yet wants to fit in. He's because he isn't shooting the three at all well. He's even more looking to pass quickly, and has a lot of gravity, and he's got a great brain. So Pascal finds himself all the time in great positions. I noticed this last night, and he's got a little Draymond Green in him now, where he's literally playing to create for others. And on a better team of shooters, I think he'd be even more capable of finding holes for himself. He's scoring. What you just said is incredible, 60%, and almost nothing is easy.
Yeah.
They don't run any special high-lows for him anymore.
Yeah.
Where he can get take advantage of and score at the rim.
The run-out layups that with Kyle Lowry, those are gone too. Like, it's just he's creating 60% shots all the time.
Right. But early in the season, though, he was getting early offense post-ups, steal scores. As long as Dennis doesn't let him throw that like Scottie does. Scottie will throw it more. So that they need to find more of that. But I still think the two of them together, which is why I think Masai first envisioned this whole thing, those two guys plus OG would be a very unique and I think successful trio. The Pirtle sign, which I understood, Pascal was shooting it better last year. That has not worked out great so far. And then the Dennis thing, I went into the season, I'm sure I probably did this show. I don't think y'all have a point guard. I still say that. I don't think Dennis is that quarterback that you need. So I'd hate for him to break things up, him being Masai, but without getting a real point guard there to see what they could do with a true pick and roll leader, a surgical guy. But nevertheless, with Dennis there, I think that some changes should be made.
Yeah. All right, Coach, we've run out of time. Appreciate you always for joining the show, making time. And if people haven't listened or subscribed to True Hoop, they should do it because they get your insight. And, honestly, I appreciate that you're more blunt than most people too, because you've been around this thing a long time. You work with a lot of players and coaches and, agents and teams call you all the time. And you know what? To be able to just tell it as it is, I think it actually is very helpful sometimes. So appreciate you, Coach.
I appreciate it as well. Have a good day.
All right.